Today we are diving into a text that's about 2,500 years old, but feels like it could have been written yesterday. It's called the Diamond Sutra, and it's built around one single radical idea that might just flip how you see, well, everything.
But first, let me ask you something. Think about yourself a year ago, or how about yesterday, or even just 5 minutes ago. Are you really, truly, the exact same person? I mean, your thoughts have changed, your cells have changed, so are you?
It's a bit of a head-scratcher, right? Well, the Diamond Sutra has a pretty startling answer. It suggests that our entire sense of a solid, continuous self, and along with it, our ideas about other people, life itself, and even time, is basically one giant, convincing illusion.
So, why even bother with this? This isn't just some abstract philosophical puzzle. The sutra actually starts with a really human, really relatable problem. It basically asks this: how can any of us find genuine, lasting peace when the world around us, and even the world inside us, is constantly changing? If nothing ever stays put, how are we supposed to ever feel truly secure? And the sutra's answer is pretty wild. It says our anxiety doesn't actually come from the fact that the world changes. No, it comes from us desperately clinging to 4 fundamental illusions about how reality works. In Mandarin, these are called the 4 notions, or 四象, 四象. The first one, and this is the big one, is the notion of a self. That's 我相, 我相. This is that deep-down feeling that there's a permanent, solid me in here. You know, the CEO in your head, the main character in the movie of your life. The sutra says this fixed I is the absolute root of our ego and all our suffering. Now, if you have a me, then you automatically have to have a not me. And that's the second illusion, the notion of others, or renqiang. This is the idea that everyone else out there is a totally separate, distinct being. And this one creates that huge divide between us and them, which leads to all kinds of stuff like conflict, jealousy, and loneliness. The third illusion kind of zooms out. It's the notion of sentient beings, 众生相. This is where we draw a really sharp line between living things, like people and animals, and the supposedly non-living world of rocks and rivers and air. This separation, the sutra says, cuts us off from the fact that we're all part of one interconnected web of existence. And finally, we have the notion of a lifespan, 寿之生. Now, this isn't just about being born and dying. It's about our deep belief in a solid, straight line of time, a fixed past, a tangible present, and a future we're always running towards. This illusion is what fuels our constant anxiety about time running. So here's the crucial point. The sutra is saying that by desperately holding on to these 4 ideas, that we're fixed selves, separate from others, apart from the world, and living on a one-way street of time, we are constantly in a battle with how reality actually is. And that fight is just completely exhausting. So, how do we stop fighting? Well, the sutra gives us a tool, a special kind of wisdom that's so sharp it can cut right through these illusions like a diamond. This wisdom is called prajna, or in Mandarin, bodhra, and it works using this really fascinating, kind of mind-bending logic. Let's look at a classic example of this logic in action. The sutra will say something that sounds pretty simple, like, all things are Buddhist things. Okay, seems reasonable enough, right? But then, it immediately hits you with the paradox, yet they are not all things, and so they are called all things. Now your first reaction is probably, wait, what? That's just gibberish. But it's not. It's actually a brilliant tool designed to take our concepts apart. So let me break this down. Normally we think a cup is a cup. Simple. But the Diamond Sutra says, whoa, hold on. The word cup is just a temporary label. In Mandarin, they'd call it a jiaming, a false name for a fleeting bunch of conditions, some clay, some fire, a design, some labor. There's no permanent, independent cupness in there. So the logic is, it's precisely because it isn't a solid fixed thing that we're able to call it a cup for now. It's a way of looking past our rigid labels to the flowing reality underneath. And get this. This deconstructive logic doesn't just apply to things like cups. It applies to everything, including the very idea of spiritual goals and achievement. So in a lot of Buddhist traditions, you have this clear path with different stages of enlightenment. It's like climbing a ladder, right? You progress through these stages, and you finally reach the top as an arhat, a fully awakened being. It seems like a very clear, achievable goal. But here's where the Diamond Sutra just pulls the rug out from under you. It says a true arhat would never ever think to themselves, I did it. I've become an arhat. And why not?
Because the second they think, I have attained this, it proves they're still stuck in the illusion. There's an I, a self, who is attaining something. They'd be caught right back in those illusions we talked about.
And that just perfectly captures the core message here. Real awakening isn't about adding another trophy to your spiritual shelf. It's about the profound act of letting go of the very idea that there was a separate you who could ever gain anything in the first place.
Okay, so if the self is an illusion, and goals are an illusion, and all our labels for things are just temporary, what's left? Are we just supposed to believe it's all nothing?
No, not at all. Actually, it's the complete opposite. The sutra says that when you finally cut through all those illusions, you don't find some empty void. You find what it calls reality as it is, or shishang. This is the world, but experienced directly, without all the filters of our concepts, our judgments, and our stories. The sutra's famous final verse puts this so beautifully. It says that everything we experience is like a dream, an illusion, a bubble on the water, a shadow, a drop of dew, or a flash of lightning.
But listen, this is not meant to be a downer. It's an invitation. It's saying, once you see that the world isn't made of solid, separate things, but is this shimmering, dynamic, magical process, you're finally free. Free to engage with it, to love it, to be a part of it, without the constant stress of trying to pin it all down.
So, the Diamond Sutra really just leads us with this one final powerful question. The you that you think you are, it's a story you've been telling yourself. But if you could let go of that story, even for a moment, what would that feel like? What would you do if you were truly free?